I remember playing Horizon Zero Dawn years ago, and I remember enjoying it, but I recently played it again and I had way less fun. So let's see if Horizon Zero Dawn is worth playing 8 years later. First of all, the visuals are still good. Everything is very pretty, although the animation does look kinda wonky sometimes. But everything is nice to look at, but that's pretty much the best part of this game. The gameplay is very subpar. I find it boring, tedious, and repetitive. I don't like the open world. The open world is mostly boring with no notable landmarks that I wanted to explore. The game does have different biomes, but it's still not that interesting. It's mostly empty, mostly consisting of ancient ruins and machines, none of which were interesting. There was nothing that I felt compelled to explore. The traversal is also pretty basic. You can either travel on foot or by horse. Traversal on foot feels fine and it's not too slow, but traversing on a horse feels kinda clunky. I find it tedious and annoying to maneuver with the horse. I also don't like how you have to tap X to move faster. It just feels weird. I often just opted to travel on foot because it just made things easier. I also think it would have been cool if we could fly some of the machines. Also, the environments in this game just weren't good. It was all either generic open world fields or generic ruins in these facilities. None of these environments were memorable, and I had no desire to explore them. The combat is very mid at best. The melee combat is particularly pretty bad. I wish there was a lock on, and I don't know why there isn't one. This doesn't make the combat unplayable, but the game is only worse off for not having it. Also, the enemy attack animations aren't always clear, and they come out too fast most of the time. The enemies also have inconsistent cooldowns after an attack, so I never really know when it's safe to counterattack. I feel completely hopeless when I'm fighting more than one enemy. This makes me feel forced to fight enemies from range. I also feel like there should have been a block button. The melee combat just feels clunky, unfair, and unfun most of the time. You can't even upgrade your spear until you play the DLC. The range combat is decent. The bow is decently fun to use, and the environment served the bow combat pretty well. There's a lot of places you can take cover, and you can balance on ropes to get more angles. Also, just like using bows in combat in games. But the problem is that the game only really incentivizes range combat, which leads me to the RPG elements of this game. Horizon Zero Dawn is not a good RPG. It heavily incentivizes you to only use your bow, and using a melee weapon is pretty much useless. This obviously heavily reduces the ways you can viably play the game. I prefer melee combat in action RPGs, and I can't play this game the way I want to. RPGs are supposed to have multiple viable playstyles. This game does not. This makes the game way less replayable than it could have been. There's also no incoming damage indicators for ranged attacks, so you'll constantly be getting hit by things off screen with no way to avoid them. This is not fair or fun. I also don't find the enemies to be that interesting at all. None of the enemies stood out to me. The humans were all boring and felt the same to fight. Yeah, some of them had different weapons, but my basic strategy was the same. Keep my distance and damage them from range. I did find the machines more fun to fight than the humans. The enemies also have weak points you can target, and some enemies have specific elemental weaknesses, which is good, but pretty standard for RPGs. But yeah, the enemies just weren't very interesting. There are other aspects of the traversal that I didn't like. I didn't really like the climbing sections. Just like the God of War games, there's no real risk in the climbing sections. There's no risk of falling off the edge while climbing. You can be damaged while climbing, but that's about it. And without any way to defend yourself while climbing, this aspect of the game is just annoying. The old God of War games did this way better, and I don't even like those games that much. The weapon variety isn't very good either. All the weapons felt pretty much the same. I never felt the need to use anything other than my bow, and none of the other weapon choices felt rewarding to use. The mission variety wasn't very interesting, and they all felt the same. It's all either fighting a bunch of enemies, looking for some clues, or doing some dumb puzzles. The sound effects were also pretty weak. The only thing that sounded remotely impactful was the spear, but it's basically useless for combat, so you're barely going to hear it anyway. There were a few fun gameplay moments. I liked the part where we had to defend the ridge against all the machines. It was fun using the cannons, and I liked the spectacle. So yeah, the gameplay is definitely below average, and I really didn't have that much fun with it. The best thing about this story is the premise. I was surprisingly interested in the lore of this world. I was invested in the mystery of who Aloy's mother was and what the hell happened to the Earth and the Old Ones, even though a lot of it was told in hologram flashbacks. At least these scenes had some interesting visuals. I don't, however, like the exposition scenes where it's just two characters blandly talking about the plot, which happens a lot in this story, which brings me to the dialogue. I don't think the dialogue was that good. Most of it consists of boring exposition spoken by boring characters. Almost all the exposition is given to us in the most boring way possible, by shot reverse shots with dry dialogue. There's also just too much dialogue. Characters talk way too much. I was only interested in the exposition that was given to us in the holograms, but when it's told to us through these dry characters, I'm just not that interested. Which brings me to the characters. Almost all the characters in this game are boring and uninteresting. I like Aloy. She's courageous, sassy, and sarcastic, but not in an annoying way. She has a clear and understandable goal of figuring out who her mother was, and, stopping Hades from destroying all life on Earth. She's a simple, static character that works for what this story is. I found Silence to be boring and annoying, mostly because he just talks too much, and it's almost all exposition. I was tired of having this guy constantly talking in my ear. Not to mention this guy has like zero personality, and he talks in the same monotone voice the whole time. There's very little to this character. I mean, he likes to collect knowledge, but that's about it. That's all we really know about him. Why he wants to collect the knowledge, I don't know. This just doesn't make him that interesting. Healy's is a super lame antagonist. I'm not even sure what he even wants. He's just a crazy cultist. He also has pretty much zero personality as well. I don't even hate this guy because I don't know who he is. His quote unquote boss fight was super lame and wasn't fun at all. He was just a slightly tougher normal bad guy. I did find it satisfying to kill him though, just because he was annoying. Hades is also a lame antagonist. It's literally just a virus that wants to consume all life on Earth. It's not even sentient. There's absolutely nothing personal or interesting about this antagonistic force. I felt nothing by defeating it. I also don't like that we don't get to see much of Aloy and Ross' relationship. I like their interactions in the beginning, but sadly these moments don't really last. I was kinda sad when Ross had to leave Aloy in the beginning after the proving, even though I didn't really know these two all that well at this point. This is the only relationship in the game that I cared about. None of the side characters were good at all. None of them were developed even a bit. I don't even remember any of their names. None of them have any personality, even when there were perfect opportunities to give them some. Like during this one quest, Aloy asked this guy if he ever wondered what it was like when the old ones were still around. And he just completely ignores her and doesn't even answer her question.
Don't you ever wonder what it used to look like? Back when the old ones lived here.
You're not like other Nora.
That's what they tell me.
This was a good opportunity to give this guy some character, but the game just doesn't, and it doesn't even try most of the time. They're just generic cardboard cutouts. I have no reason to care about them whatsoever. Like I have no idea why I should care about Aaron or his sister. We know nothing about either of these two, but we're somehow supposed to feel sad when she dies. This feels super forced. I also don't give a fuck about any of the clans, because I don't know anything about them. I can't tell you a single thing about the Karja, Nora, Oseram, or anyone else. I don't know about their politics, their relationship with one another, or what they're even about, because it's not shown to us. The game also doesn't build up to the final battle well. I was actually surprised when I was told the final battle was about to begin, because I didn't feel any tension or build up whatsoever. Mainly because we barely see our antagonists and what they're capable of. We're just told about it. We don't really see Hades doing anything until the end of the game. I played a small portion of the Frozen Wilds DLC, and the gameplay and the story was just like the main game but worse. I found this DLC to be boring and tedious, and I didn't even end up finishing it. So yeah, I say this game is pretty much overrated. The gameplay was mid at best, without much of any variety of how you can play. Many aspects of it felt clunky and unrefined, and mostly, it was boring and repetitive. The story was boring and lacked any powerful moments. The only interesting thing about it was the premise. The characters were boring, the plot wasn't engaging, and the dialogue was lackluster. This game is definitely not a 9 out of 10. For me, I would have to give this game a 5 out of 10. Anyways, that's what I think about Horizon Zero Dawn. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe if you want. Patreon is in the description if you want to support, and bye.